On today's Olympic Hockey Daily, presented by Locked On NHL, we've got a recap of opening ceremonies from Erica Ayala in China, a look at day 2 of action, and a look ahead to the weekend of women's tournament action.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Friday edition of Locked On NHL Olympic Hockey Daily. I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm on Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here with Ann Kimmel of Locked On Predators and Erica Ayala from Locked On Kraken, coming to us from Beijing, China. Hello.
Hey, Rachel.
Hey, everyone. Ni hao.
Thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, and you can watch us over on YouTube. All right, Erica, I'm so excited to talk to you about opening ceremonies and how the day 2 of hockey went. First, though, we got a little bit of news from the Finnish women's team about their coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate whenever you have someone that has to leave a tournament, and unfortunately, we had a few of those that we'll sure talk about. But yeah, you always hate to also hear when it's something that's a personal matter that seems urgent, and that's difficult for a team to then have to adjust. Of course, these are all professionals at the international level, and I'm sure they'll make it work. I would be lying, though, if I didn't think in passing as I heard the news that the conversation for Finland going into this tournament was that this particular coach and Noraratu were not necessarily seeing eye to eye and had a disagreement for personal reasons. Now, again, this is a personal family matter for him, so I'm not putting that on him in any way, but it is just very interesting to see how people come in and out, especially in a tournament that's trying to go on, as there's so many other things happening in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. Finnish head coach Pasi Mustonen is heading back to Finland. So the assistant coach Juuso Toivola is taking over for the Finns, who are 0-1 currently and are playing Canada next. But I think, Erica, the thing we want most is to hear about opening ceremonies. How was
For
that?
sure.
Wow. Well, it's definitely something to experience and behold. And it was cold. It was definitely cold. The advice that I was given is, dress until you're hot, just, in your hotel, and then put on another layer. So I tried to follow that. And I was doing okay, but we got there super early, and I was not anticipating having to be out in the elements for that long. There was a media center and like an eating area, but I'm trying to be in fresh open air as much as possible. So it was not. I just don't like being cold, so it wasn't my favorite thing. That being said, the opening ceremonies I thought were beautiful. It was really cool to see China. I know we talked about it last time I was on, and I think I got the lanterns behind me, but to see China really embrace their culture and the Lunar New Year, and that is a kickoff for spring for them, which I held on to that thought to keep me warm. But the imagery was very, very lovely. I loved the performance. I'm not sure if it aired, but they had a performance of dancers as they were doing the countdown, and it was all ages, which I loved.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
neat.
and the performers then kind of switched positioning on the track. So each section of the arena got to see all of the costumes and everything. I thought it was really great. And
Oh, that's
some
so
of the
cool.
it was so cool. And then there were these group of cheerleaders. I want to do some sleuthing and see if they're the same group, at least part of the group that was at the ice arena. But these cheerleaders literally were bouncing around and dancing the whole time that the athletes were walking in. And at first I was like, oh my, that is some stamina. And then by about, 20 minutes in, I was like, you know what? How do I get that job? Because I wish
They
I
were
would
warm at least.
exactly. I was like, I would love to be bouncing around. So all in all, it was a great experience. I thought China did a very good job.
Mm.
And it was there were more people in the arena than I thought there would be. But they were very excited, especially when the Republic of China marched in, and also some of the other nations that are very close to them, regionally. So it was great.
What a cool experience.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it'll turn out on the primetime version of the broadcast over here, but I did watch a good portion of the live broadcast at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. And one thing that upset me was that they cut to commercial when Canada walked in. And so I didn't really get to
No,
see the Canadian women's hockey team. I was very
Yeah.
bummed
no.
out. They
Oh my
did.
Yeah.
That
goodness.
it felt very deliberate.
A
I'm
little
gonna
passive
say.
aggressive,
Yeah.
maybe.
And cut to commercial. Wow,
Yeah.
That's
that's
right.
unfortunate because we talked about MPP, Marie-Philippe Poulin, being a
Mhm.
flag bearer. And
Yeah, I
then
mean,
I'm
Yes.
actually,
you saw that, but then
yeah.
the
And then it
second
was
they
like,
walked in, it was like, done.
oh, that's too
Yep.
bad because I'm pretty sure that the women's hockey team was immediately behind the flag bearers. Like they were the
Oh.
first in the group. I recognized Sarah Nurse's curls. I love that she's just wearing her curls and embracing them fully. And it's hard to see everyone's got coats and masks and hats or toboggans or beanies or whatever you call it. And but I liked their jackets too because it looked like there was a situation where like the longer sleeves you could kind of like shrug off the shoulder. So I thought that was nifty. Some people were fully like strapped and buttoned and zipped up, and other people were like, "Hey, I'm just I'm out here living my life."
Well, speaking of teams, Erica, let's talk just real quick about some things going on with Team USA. Have you heard any updates on the taxi squad situation, seeing as we're down Brianna Decker and they didn't initially bring anyone?
So I have not heard any definitive updates. I was able to ask Joel Johnson. First of all, I just want to say that Alex Az has been doing an amazing job following this for
Mhm.
all
Yes.
teams.
Yes.
And so I followed up with Joel Johnson after the game. And at the time, he was non-committal to whether Bree Decker was returning. USA
Mm,
Hockey had pretty much announced that she would not be returning, and I saw
right.
some of the still shots
Yeah, she
that
was in a
the
Mm,
boot.
photogs. Yeah, the still shots were really just
brutal, I'm sure.
very very tough. So
Mm,
all that to say that Joel and USA Hockey told us at the time that there is a small window and there is a procedure where they can bring in alternates. They again, Joel was kind of non-committal as far as Decker, but I'm pretty sure they're at the stage where they're going to have to activate the plan where they will not have her. Again,
yes.
she was in a boot. It did not look great. Definitely an ankle, lower body situation. So we should know soon what they're going to do there. But it's going to be tough. Also, Joel was a little non-committal when it came to how to switch out his lines,
Okay.
which makes a lot of sense. It's not
Right.
something that they necessarily planned and prepped for. I will
Right.
say though that having Abby Rock move up on that line with Carpenter and Kessel, outside of the circumstances, I absolutely love that.
Yes.
100% agree. 100% agree. I think it was a really good combination, especially her and Kessel. I thought they had really good chemistry.
Yeah, and Abby Rock, I also spoke to her, and in addition to her saying just that she's worked with those two before, she also responded to the Decker injury, saying that she, for a while, was out with a pretty serious ankle injury and
Oh,
almost had like a flashback to that moment. And
Oh, wow.
seeing how Decker
oh,
reacted, she knew that it was pretty serious. and she's
Yeah.
been through that type of pain. Ankle injuries, even just a sprain, can be pretty tough. But Abby is excited to move up in that line if that's what is asked of her. But what I really liked is what Kendall Coyne Schofield said, that at least for that game, it was, next player up. And she had a quote, and so did Joel Johnson, where they said everyone did what they were asked. And I think that's really key. I think there's still some questions for this USA team. There were questions coming in, but unfortunately, the Decker injury might be something that, let's say, accelerates the growth
Mm.
process for this team.
Yes, for sure. For sure. It's definitely something they didn't foresee, and how they roll with it is going to be very telling about the program and the athletes. So far, they've done a great job, but they've got some good competition coming up too. And we're going to talk about some of the competition that we have seen over the last evening. And this morning, we've got some games to cover for you. But first, want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you from our friends at Built Bar. If you are trying to get fit or eat healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easy to stick to your plan because it tastes so good, you'll want to actually eat them. Unlike other protein bars, which can be kind of chalky or waxy, or they taste kind of chemical and not like actual food, you want to eat healthy, but we know it gets boring. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, so you can go through the house, throw out all the sugary, calorie-filled treats, replace them with Built Bars. So when you're craving a snack or a treat, you can reach for something that's healthy and tastes incredible. Your typical Built Bar has 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and it's packed with 17 grams of protein. And there are so many flavors to choose from. They have coconut almond. I personally love the peanut butter brownie. They have raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie. They have tons more flavors. In fact, they are always coming out with new limited time flavors. So check out built.com often to see what's new. While you're there at built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. That is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. All right, so because of opening ceremonies, there were only 2 games in the overnight for us folks in the East Coast, but of course, like probably normal times for you, Erica. The first one, and I think probably kind of the more significant for us to take a look at, is the Russian team in their first game of the tournament against Switzerland, who had just come off that 12-1 loss to Team Canada. So we talked about Russia's roster and their COVID situation on the show yesterday with Russ Cohen. If you haven't listened to that, you should take a listen to that as well to get some more in-depth information. But I think there were some interesting choices in that for both teams that kind of worked out for the Russians and did not work out so well for the team from Switzerland. They fell to the Russians 5-2.
Yeah, and Switzerland, if we go back to Worlds, and I feel like maybe last time I was on with you, we talked about this, but Switzerland has been a team that has been struggling. Now, we expected some of that with Sweden because they've been having some issues with their federation and really have fallen out of that A group actually to Japan, and then they lost to Japan. So that's a little budding rivalry. But as far as Switzerland, I just feel like they're a team that hasn't quite figured themselves out yet. They have these amazing players, Staller, Mueller, and they were able to, eke their way and advance in world championships, but they lack consistency. And it's a tough thing to say, and I don't say it often, but I also wonder if they lack a little bit of confidence at times. They just seem like an unsure team at times, and that's something that I really want to see them continue to work on. You don't necessarily want to be working on those types of things at the Olympic tournament, But for me,
Yeah.
I think Switzerland is really just kind of struggling with a little bit of team identity. And, they have a goaltender that's putting in a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my big question, right? Because she faced 70 shots against Canada and then goes in the next day and plays again. I mean, was it the right choice to put Branley back in that game?
It's tough because goaltenders can be, they're interesting creatures on and off the ice, right? And
Mhm.
for some
For sure.
goaltenders in a short, yeah, exactly. For some goaltenders, it's a short tournament. And
Hmm.
even if they're getting absolutely peppered, they might be the type of netminder that needs reps. And there's nothing like
Hmm.
seeing shots when you don't know they're coming. At some point, you get used to practice drills or you get used to your teammate. And so you can almost kind of like second nature anticipate things. But when you're in the run of play, when you're facing other people, that's important for goalies. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on. I don't know if it's necessarily a situation where you don't necessarily have a lot of faith in your other netminders. Maybe they're dealing with some tweaks or injuries that haven't been fully reported. So there's a lot of things that can go into that. I don't if we see it continue, I mean, it's not a great game for the Switzerland team, but it's not a terrible loss either. So
Right.
I think you got to now see how the coaching staff is matching up their goaltender, because there's some games that they absolutely have to have, even in this preliminary round, and that might be how they kind of have to strategize moving forward.
And there were some bright spots for sure for Switzerland. There were moments in this game where I really felt like they could have grabbed some momentum and didn't. Alina Mueller got her first goal of the game, which was good to see. But there was another opportunity where I felt like, oh, if she had just she had a really great shot that, of course, ended up being saved. But and then Russia turned around and scored. And I thought, boy, if you had had that back and gotten that goal, it may have been a different game. So there were just some moments where it felt like they could have turned the momentum and just didn't quite do enough to do that.
Yeah, and that's hockey, baby, right?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
know nothing about. I absolutely know nothing about a team that is just totally endearing, has some great pieces, but just can't quite get it together on the ice. I know nothing,
No.
nothing about that. But again, I just feel like that's this the Switzerland team, the Swiss team right now, and let's see. It is a short tournament, but anything can happen at the international stage, especially the Olympics, and that's what makes it exciting. So for
Mhm.
Switzerland, I'm hoping that they find some of that deep within, and they really push through some of the growing pains. And like I said with the U.S., that they almost accelerate that learning curve and building that chemistry.
I do also want to give the team from Russia some credit for this win. It
Mhm.
wasn't just Switzerland losing. Russia absolutely won this game.
For
Hat
sure.
trick for Polina Bulgareva. This is her first Olympics. She plays for Dynamo St. Petersburg, averaging more than a point per game on that team. And I think, the resiliency that they showed was
Mhm.
amazing in the sense that Switzerland tied it up with them twice over the course of the game. And once they scored again 13 seconds later, the next time it was about 3 minutes and 30 seconds later and scoring shorthanded, no less. So I think that really when it came to putting away this game, Russia was able to do that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Russia is a team. They're not like Denmark or the Czech Republic in that they're young and kind of new to this stage. They've been around for a while, but they have seen some personnel changes, at least player wise. They've seen younger talent come in, and Russia or the Russian athletes can be a feisty, ferocious team, and they get to compete against a lot of top European talent, especially by way of having their own women's league in their country. So I think that Russia it's looking like they're on a trajectory to really kind of get out of that, almost what I would say kind of like being structural in these international
Mhm.
tournaments. And to your point, Rachel, are really looking to not just get by and win a game, but to take control of a game at particular moments in time. And it was really great also to see Sorokana, Connecticut
Mm-hmm.
Whale and
Yes.
Metropolitan Riveters
Yes.
fans might recognize that name. And oh my goodness, what a character. Speaking of that young talent, she's been kind of the third goalie in line for a little while now, and to see that she was able
Exactly.
to get some time in the Olympics, I'm very excited and look forward to catching up with her in the media scrum, because she is a hoot, let me tell you.
Well, some other names that might be familiar to North American women's hockey fans appeared in the Denmark versus China game as well. China won that one 3-1, and Leah Lum, who is on Team China, has been a part of the scoring for every China goal so far. She's got
Wow.
2 goals and 2 assists, ranked 4th in scoring in the tournament so far. I know it's early days, but she's a University of Connecticut alum. So that was really cool to see. She also assisted on Rachel Lannis's winning goal in that game. And that's another name that North American hockey fans should know.
Yes, absolutely. I I was tweeting about the China game, their first opening game, because I have been very curious to see how China would perform, knowing that players like Rachel Yanis or Jessica Wong, who is another name that North American hockey fans should know. She played in the CWHL. Um, they invested so much money, and players like
Mm-hmm.
Nora Ratu
Mm-hmm.
or Alina Mills talked about it from from her time being in China. Megan Bozek, Alex Carpenter, all of these players rotated in and out with now this eventual Chinese national team, and you're seeing it. This is a very
Mm-hmm.
different team than we saw break into the CWHL years ago. They're exciting. They're quick. They are aggressive on the forecheck,
Yes.
and their
Yes.
defenders. They stand. They were standing opponents up at either end of the blue line, and they are very good at forcing turnovers in entries and exits, and I think that all makes for really great hockey.
It does. Well, there's a lot of really great hockey coming up this weekend,
Mm.
starting even tonight. Canada takes on Team Finland. Then in our overnight game, it's Czechia against Sweden and Denmark against Japan. And then on Saturday, Team USA will lace up against that very Chinese team that we were just talking about. And I think they'll provide a different style of competition than the Finns did. And I'm very interested to see how Team USA will adjust.
Yep, there are definitely some adjustments, including what we'll see with the lines. There are some players that I think will need to step up. I think Kessel and Carpenter, for a while now, quite honestly, have really been putting USA on their back. I think the defensive breakdowns have been something we've seen for the USA, but individual defenders like Lee Steckline, Megan Keller, also doing really great job, Kayla Barnes. And so, similarly to what we've been saying with other teams, especially now with the injury to Brie Decker, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
about accelerating that process of getting the team chemistry right, um, having laser sharp focus for all of these teams, but especially the United States, and just willing yourself to do whatever it takes to get the win.
Absolutely. And then Sunday over here, we have Team USA versus Switzerland and Canada versus Russia. So it's going to be a big weekend, very important, going to really kind of set the tone for the standings where things might end up as we approach the medal rounds. So that'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back on Monday and we'll recap the weekend's games. And then we'll be welcoming our Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets colleague, Jay Foster. We're going to talk all things goaltending in this women's tournament. Have a great day, everyone.